Welcome everyone to Health Coach TV. I am your host, Dr. Shaunna Menard, and I am here with a very special guest, Lana Gajic. And we are really excited. If you have been here with us before on Health Coach TV, just let us know. We now have some previous episodes at healthcoach-tv.com, so you can check that out. I am going to introduce our awesome guest here in just a moment. Hi, Lana, how are you?
Hi, doing well. Shaunna, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So this is a little bit of a different episode than we usually have. We often have lots of health ailments, and we're talking about relationships. So if you are someone who is struggling with either a previous or impending divorce or breakup, you're going to want to tune in, especially now. It can be even more anxiety provoking, and our guest is an expert in this area. So let me give her a proper introduction. So Lana is a divorce coach who has a master's degree in psychology. She has extensive professional experience with this topic and has devoted her life to supporting others during one of the most difficult circumstances that people can have in their adult life. She is a successful entrepreneur and best-selling author of the book, Breakup to Breakthrough, 10 Steps to a Spiritually Enlightened Life After Divorce. And hang with us here, because at the end of this broadcast, I'm going to let you know how you can get a free copy of her book. Lana is also the creator of the 90-Day Divorce Recovery Program, in which she helps people get over their divorce so they can emerge from it stronger, healthier, and happier, and improve their work productivity and get back to dating again. So with that, welcome, Lana.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I am going to just do a tune in for our guests here on, I've got a couple of screens happening here. So I'm going to just do a little tune in. And if you are seeing this episode and this is your first ever Health Coach TV, just drop a number 1. And if you've seen a number of these episodes, just put a bunch of hearts or pluses, and also share with us where you are calling in from. We'd love to know what part of the world you're tuning in. So with that, let's start this off, Lana. And so tell us, what is it that you do now? What kind of work do you do?
So I've been a psychologist for a number of years. Prior to that, I've done all kinds of things for about 20 years now, counseling in different capacities and with different client issues. And as that, the more I've worked, the more I've streamlined my work into working with people who have experienced trauma, relationship issues, grief, and looking from it from an attachment perspective. And so now I'm working more with people who are professionals and entrepreneurs who are experiencing, all the issues that come with divorce. So this is after they've divorced and they're struggling. And my job is to help them through the struggle to get them to a healthier, happier, more fulfilled life after divorce.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think being an entrepreneur and a professional, especially an entrepreneur, I know, well, both actually, can be anxiety provoking in and of itself, and then add on to that uncertainty of, it's like uncertainty layered on top of uncertainty of relationship, of work, and especially at this time, it can be just a little bit overwhelming. For sure. What had you get into this line of work and doing the work that you do now?
Funny you should ask, because I feel like I'm an old soul. I always knew what I wanted to do. And I was probably, I want to say junior high, maybe even younger. And I always knew people would ask me, what are you going to do when you grow up? And I would say a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. I'm going to be a psychologist. And so it's just kind of interesting that there was never been a moment where that has been different. That need and want to help, and that passion and drive to want to help people. And so ever since I could remember, that's been my answer. And I still am. So it's just kind of an interesting how I got into that.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. And I think most of the people that I work with, or I get the pleasure of working with, all these healers and health coaches and doctors and psychologists, there's something in there. We're a different breed. There's a calling to help and heal. I kind of think everybody has that, but not really. And so that's lovely. So tell us what it is that you know, like why help people with divorce in particular? Why help people going through this particular experience?
Yeah. So you've mentioned it as well. You know, it is one of the most probably harrowing experiences that an adult can go through. And there is no manual really on how to. And, you know, typically, how do people cope with that? They, you know, especially with professionals and entrepreneurs, they often start just by focusing on work. They don't even look at the relationship aspect. But what's interesting is that, you know, and I don't just have a background in psychology, I have a background in science as well, and neuropsychology. And so I look at a lot about the mind-body connection. And, you know, you cannot separate one from the other, but you also cannot separate your career from your personal life. You are who you are, all wrapped up in one body. And you're right. And so when I look at kind of how people cope, so often the first step is sort of, I'm just going to ignore it. I have to focus on work, stabilize in that department. And then they start to kind of look at, okay, I do see a need for healing. What do I need to do? And so this is when people start to consult with their loved ones, trusted friends, colleagues, whoever those people might be. But there's no actual manual. And there's no consensus, I don't think, that I've heard people say ever. These are the steps. If you take these exact steps, then you're going to get over divorce. And so that's kind of what I give people. I give them a step-by-step mind-body connection. And I use what I know from science so that people can actually heal. And so my approach is such that the end goal is get over your relationship. And often people don't look at it this way. Relationships, when we form patterns in relationships, they often go on for a number of years. And people don't look at it as my brain is learning something. And we've perpetuated this learning over and over and over. We've wired this learning into our brains. Now our brains are wired to expect the thing we just left, even though we left it and we left it for a good reason. We want to, and our brain wants to perpetuate because that's what it knows. But you left the relationship for a good reason. And so what are those steps you need to take to unlearn what you've learned and rewire that brain so you can get yourself to heal from the relationship and eventually get back to dating?
Yeah, that is really powerful what you just said there. I'm taking it all in because, yeah, you will see people go through a pattern and you want to learn from it and grow beyond it. If you left, you're leaving it for a reason, so you don't want to repeat the pattern, but left on your own, likely that is the default pattern is what is all you know. You might not know there is another way. Very interesting and very powerful. That's, yeah. And, you know, I remember a lot of colleagues. I'm fortunate I have not had to go through that experience, so I'm lucky. But I know a lot of my colleagues went through that experience, and it was never pleasant. And nobody plans for it. You know, people plan for a wedding, they plan right down to the meals and everything.
Yeah.
They do a lot of planning there, but nobody wants or anticipates, and nobody plans for a divorce, I don't think. Even nobody plans for death really, but they do plan more for that, whether it's a burial plot or a will.
Yeah.
Nobody plans for a divorce.
No, or the steps to take to get over that divorce. What's my healing plan? What's my strategy?
Right. Yeah. So I can see that. So how do you work with your clients? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. It's a step-by-step process that I take people through. It is a program, it's in the book. So I'm happy to share this process. You know, I don't want, especially during this time, I don't want anyone to suffer and be alone with this. But the way that I work is giving you a step-by-step process where you are handling the two sides of the brain together. So I'm just going to go and just give a little bit of background for those that don't know what I'm talking about when I say there's two halves of the brain, and there's a verbal side, which is the talking side, and then there's the non-verbal side, which is the feeling and sensing side of the brain. And so for someone to heal and completely heal, you have to be able to target both sides of the brain. And so when you target both, what you're doing is healing the thinking, the body sensations, and the emotional aspect of your functioning, essentially. And as you work yourself through the program, actually there is another component. There's a spiritual component that is added, because as you probably, anyone who's lost anything important to them, it could be a thing or a person, it doesn't have to be tangible necessarily, it could be a dream, but there is a grief, a deep, deep grief aspect to it. And we have, as human beings, we have a tendency to ask the question, well, why did this happen? Why did this happen to me? And that is kind of that next level of healing, that there is a closure happening, a circuit closing essentially with the healing, and it sort of ends with that spiritual aspect. And so what you get is a healing on a number of levels that is kind of layering on top, and so building on top as you work through that program to help you heal entirely.
Yeah, I love that holistic mind-body approach at all levels. I love some of the things that I've seen your program. I've seen the steps that you walk people through, and it's brilliant, guys. You definitely want a copy of this book. I learned so much. Just she's a brilliant lady, and just about really how to biohack your nervous system, and it's actually great without divorce, even if you're not going through a divorce, just how to heal, and if you are even just to manage anxiety and overwhelm for any reason. So divorce is certainly one inciting factor, but just even learning, even those first few steps that I know you walk people through, it's powerful. And it's like, oh, I might feel non-functional, but it is possible to function and thrive through this. And it's about how do you get back on your feet. I think when sometimes people will suffer a blow like this, they feel like they've been sucker punched.
Yeah.
And like, the wind knocked out of them, and how do they move forward? And so this is really great. Not just talking about things, but actual practical steps that people can take. So it's exciting. If you are loving this, feel free to, Mary McRae is saying, what's the name of the book? And the book is, I'll let you say.
Breakup to Breakthrough.
Breakup to Breakthrough. I think you can get a copy of it. I'm going to share it again at the end, but at healmybreakup.com, is that it?
That's it. Yeah. Healmybreakup.com. You got it.
So, and I can maybe get someone to pop in there, healmybreakup.com, and we'll make sure we put that link in by the end. But thank you, Gerald. I see that he's just done that.
He's on it. He's wonderful.
He's on it. That's awesome. I'll keep that one. So you're able to get a free copy there, but there's plenty of free stuff and great tips she's going to share. So stay with us here. Would you say, Lana, is the biggest myth when it comes to people getting over a breakup?
Yeah, I love that question. There are several, but the biggest that I would love to share with you is the time heals all wounds. That's what I hear. Time heals all wounds. All the time I hear that. And then I see people 4 years down after a divorce, they're already, in a complicated relationship situation and are struggling. And so time does not heal all wounds. There are absolutely steps that you can take, that you need to take after a divorce, so that you can rewire your brain and help replace those negative relationship patterns that you've adjusted to. Because that's what happens, isn't it? When we relive something over and over, interact with someone over and over in the same way, we're literally reliving that in our brains, whether it's actually something that's like we can dream about it and we can literally replay the same pattern. Now, to the brain, it doesn't matter if you're dreaming or if you're actually like living it. It's the same thing. And so my techniques are imagery based, because the brain, again, doesn't know that it's not actually real. So you can actually heal and rewire the brain using imagery based, because again, time doesn't heal all wounds. And we need to be able to take concrete, step-by-step, build the steps, build of course upon themselves, so that you can actually get to that point of healing. And there's a peace by the end of that program. There's peace, and there's grace. It's just beautiful. There's so many benefits that people get, which we'll talk about later, about that time doesn't heal. Always. Right. That's a very, very strong myth that I see over and over.
And you do hear that all the time, and not necessarily, yeah, it's not true.
No.
So, and time is just time. So what are some of the first steps that people could do if they're struggling right now? So maybe they're just gone through a breakup, or they have an impending, or they're right in the middle of it, or maybe it even happened a few years ago, and they have discovered for themselves, time is not healing it. I feel I have not moved forward on this. So what are some of the steps that they could take right now?
The very first step is get a hold of your nervous system. So there are absolutely very quick ways, and I'm talking within seconds, you can get a control of your nervous system. And what I mean when I say nervous system, it's, are you anxious? Are you shut down? Maybe you're not available to yourself or to your family. So whether it's one extreme or the other, we can bring you into that window of resilience where people do function well, do have a good attention, good focus. Stress happens, but they take it in stride and they don't lose functioning because of it. And so if I relate it back to science, there, and I'll just be very brief, there is the window of resilience, I call it. So if this is kind of that window, people's windows kind of shrink. So they can't handle as much before they fly out of the window. Now on this end of the window is hyperarousal. So it is too much. So it's either they're feeling a lot of anger, resentment, anxiety. So I kind of equate it to turning on the volume way loud on a radio. It is jarring after a while. It's exhausting. And so when they're exhausted, people jump, or rather they fall from this part of the window, hyperarousal, into down here, which is hypoarousal. And hyperarousal is of course the opposite. You're tuning the nervous system way down. So it's like you're feeling lethargic and tired and you're exhausted and you don't want to be around people and don't want to be bothered. It's hard to get out of bed. And so I'm finding people are either in one extreme or the other. And the sweet spot, they don't even know that even exists. So that's what we have to do, is help them find the sweet spot, that window of resilience, where these biohacks are designed, and there's about 20 of them suggestions on how people can actually use and apply and very quickly get a hold of their functioning, essentially, to get into that window of resilience. And then of course they build up on it. So that's a start, because we all need to feel like we're in control again. Right. But we do also have to practice I almost call it like mental hygiene. People meditate. I certainly do. I think it's wonderful. All people should meditate, but they don't necessarily know how, or it's hard. They've tried. So I give other tools and resources that people can actually use to do that mental hygiene in a little more depth than just those biohacks that take seconds to do.
Yeah. That's excellent. It's kind of like people, and I think a lot of people right now too can relate to those hyper and hypoarousals. They're people who are panicked and you can't function, and everybody has at one time or another in their life experienced a moment of panic over something and know how you can't really function well when you panic. And then also when you're just overwhelmed and flattened and lethargic and paralyzed as well. And that's not helpful either. So yeah, bringing people into that sweet spot, as you say, and biohacking their nervous system so that they can get it to work. They can get their bodies to work for them is huge, huge. Any other tips you want to share, or any other spin-off benefits of the work that you've seen with your clients? Anything that you want to share in that regard?
Yeah, so why don't I give maybe some biohacking techniques. Perfect. And then I can also answer that second question, which is the spin-offs.
Okay, make sure you grab a pen, everyone. Grab a pen. Okay. And let me know which one is your favorite in the comments. Okay, go ahead.
These are good. Yeah, these are good. These are lifelong strategies that I would literally be teaching children, your neighbors, your family, everybody. This is, if you are a living human being, we all have nervous systems. Right? So as long as we're alive and kicking, we have a nervous system, and that nervous system has the potential to get out of that window of resilience. We need to learn how to bring it back. So There's a few that I love. So one that I use to actually go to sleep. Sometimes when you have a hard day and there's a lot happen in the day, it's hard to sleep, right? So oftentimes with I mean, I've had that myself. A lot of people have had that, particularly people that have gone through a divorce, because that anxiety, right? And it's pretty high usually, and they have a hard time either falling asleep or staying asleep. So if you happen to not be able to go to sleep, or if you're waking up, this is how you get yourself back to sleep. And I love this because it literally takes me 10 seconds and I'm yawning again, ready to go. So it's called the woo breath. I call it the woo breath. So you're literally just breathing normally, breathing in, and then you're just gonna go woo, and you go as long as you can, but make it natural, and then just keep doing that over and over. There's a lulling that happens to your nervous system, and there is a nerve, it's called the vagus nerve, that runs kind of in the front here. And when you're doing the woo breath, you're actually vibrating this area with your vocal cords. And what it's doing is it's sort of sending a message through the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is responsible to relax us. So the vagus nerve starts to vibrate and is sending signals to the rest of you to say, hey, we're chill. You don't need to stress anymore, relax, right? And so it starts to calm down. So I kid you not, 10 seconds, the woo breath is really good to do that. Which one do I want to? Oh, I love this one too. So this one's more if you're up and out of bed, you want to stand on one foot. So the standing on one foot, what that does is your brain is always first and foremost preoccupied with your safety. So if there's ever a potential maybe that you're not going to be safe, it will take your attention from everything else and right into that. So balancing on one foot, there's a potential to hurt yourself, isn't there?
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I love this because I challenge people like, okay, now try to think about the thing you were thinking about and balance, and you'll see them kind of wobble a little and just go back into focus, because they just you cannot do both at the same time. So balance on one foot, you can switch feet. If you're dealing with customers, I know now is not probably when, but family perhaps, and maybe your kid is feeling it challenging right now, challenging you on something and it's hard. Balance on one foot, keep yourself grounded so that you respond in the way you want to respond. And as you get better, because I anticipate people will, switch feet or lift it up. It's kind of like a yoga tree pose is what it looks like in the end. Yeah, so I like that one. So there's two versions of the biohacking techniques. They can look at it up on the book if they want more. But those are kind of, one is for when you're winding down and want to relax, and the other one is you're up and at 'em doing stuff. You know.
I love that. And if you're in a confrontation with a kid, if nothing else, it'll break the heat of the moment, because they'll be wondering, what the heck are you doing?
That's true if you start wooing right then and there.
But I love that. Those are really good, easy, non-time consuming. Totally. So sometimes people are really busy, and those are things that can be easily done. And, you know, even just bringing your foot up just a little bit, like say if you are at work, you know, bringing it up just a little bit, people might not even notice, but
they don't.
So those are some things that you can quickly bring into. Those are excellent. And she's got lots more in her book.
I do. I have about 20. So yeah.
Excellent. So, so what about some other spin-off benefits to the work that you've seen? So as you heal them through, what are some of the things that you've noticed with your clients?
Yeah, there are tons actually. And that's because of that connection. You are one person in one body, and how you function in your life, personal life, will impact your work, your social life, your relationship with your kids, everything, right? It is what it is. And so aside from getting over the divorce and getting control of your nervous system, people have also experienced an increase in confidence. And which helps, because very quickly after, people are kind of like, oh, I'm ready to date. Yep, that sounds good. You know when you're ready. And there's a confidence rather than a fear of, oh my God, how will this be? Will he, she want me? Could I find anybody? Oh, I'm so old, or I have kids, right? There's a lot of fear that people have starting over. Will I be able to? Am I attractive enough? I'm not, 20 anymore. And it doesn't matter how old we are. You know, that is something that happens to all of us. We have that insecurity. And so this program actually leads to you just feeling that confidence with all of who you are, which is incredible. There's also self-acceptance. And that is actually, to me, key, which I think leads to that confidence. Self-acceptance of it is what it is. Life is about duality. Everything is, there's duality in everything, right? I like this flower and it gives me allergies. I like my husband, partner, whatever. And there's days that I just can't stand what he does, right? And that's normal. So we can accept that about life and about ourselves. You know, right now I'm mad at my boy, my kid, but, you know, I also love him to pieces. You know, both are happening at the same time. So I think the key to life, and I mean, I do go on about this in my program as well, is that self-acceptance is what comes from that. There's, of course, enhanced coping skills with life stressors, because life's always going to throw us curveballs. But right now your baseline is, oh goodness, I'm divorced. This is hard. Lots of transitions. And you're going to have more curveballs happen. That's just life. Life happens, right? We can't ever know what we're going to get out of it. But there's also a gratitude, a sense of peace within yourself. There is clarification almost of values, what you want in life, how you want your life to be, what you want in a partner, what you want your relationship to be really with that partner. And there is compassion. You have self-compassion and kind of empathy. And there's a greater balance of your life period. Before you might have maybe focused more on work, this is a realization, I want to be a whole person and I'm ready to take those steps. But speaking of work actually has an additive bonus. So this is why I work with entrepreneurs and professionals. They are leaders, either to their group in their companies, or they're leading clients in certain ways. So their potential to impact the world, and this is why I wanted to work with this population, their potential to impact is great. And I want them to be in their best selves to do that. So what I see them as they go through this, there is an enhanced ability to lead, an enhanced ability to connect with other people, because there's no negative patterns that they're having to sort of topple over each time. And there's a sense, you know, often people tell me it's about the trust. I've learned to trust other people, to just let them do the work, and I know it's going to get done and it's okay. Versus before before divorce program, I can't trust anyone. I just it's going to be done by me and I'll know it's done well. And so that's kind of that attitude, right? So there's a shift of trust in other. There's also an increase in motivation and focus and concentration. And so of course, these are main things. If you're trying to lead a group of people or trying to get certain tasks done that are important in your work, I mean, it's good for life, period, but it definitely impacts work in these very important ways.
That's fantastic. I can see how it would absolutely help work, like you said, with the trust issues, and because you may have lost that trust with that partner, and then you're going to be, maybe if left to just time trying to heal its wounds, which doesn't work, you're going to be untrusting of other people because you've been let down. And I can imagine also potentially abandonment issues as well, if someone has left you or you feel like you've been left. And then if people quit at your work or leave, then that can be triggering, and it just kind of gets all muddled together. So I can see that. And I can also see the value of your book and the work that you do. Even for, like, as you're speaking through this, I'm like, even if people have not gone through a breakup or a divorce, like the strategies that you're talking about can propel all of us further, but especially when you've had a bigger contrast event like a divorce or I see a similar thing when people have gone through cancer and a cancer diagnosis. Sometimes in retrospect, people say best thing that ever happened to them, because if they were just living their life as it was, they were kind of grumbling along, but it forced an awakening, if you will, of how can this be even better? And they emerge from it stronger, healthier, happier.
Yeah.
I can see the work that you're doing as well is having people emerge from that, from a divorce, better, stronger, healthier, happier. So I'm just fascinated by your work. I love the practical steps and the tools that are in your book and in your program, but also it embodies such great science, but also from a very holistic view. It's perfect, guys. It really is. You got to check it out. So how can people, if you guys have questions, feel free to pop that in the comments there. But how can people get a copy of your book? What's the easiest way?
The easiest way is probably just go to healmybreakup.com, and there's an area where they can click and pop in their email, and then they'll get that link sent to them right away.
That is super generous, Lana. Like, to get a free copy of her book is awesome. So super generous of you, and we appreciate that, of you sharing that with our followers. I know you also have a group. We can mention that too. If people are wanting, you do have a support group. I suppose we can pop that in the comments as well.
Sure, yeah, we can do
that. A little
that.
bit about that group. Tell us just a little bit about that group and who's it for.
Yeah, so it's for people, like I said, professionals and entrepreneurs that have recently divorced and they're ready to take the next step. Divorce is something that isn't a single instance in moment event. It typically is happening over a course of several months or years for people. And, you know, it's just, there's a definite end to it, right? The separation and then boom, divorce. So, but there is a process. And so people have already shifted in that there needs to be something more. So this is for the group of people who are ready for the next step. I want to heal. I want to get my life in order again. And I'm ready to look at the whole full picture, which is not just where where my perspective. I'm going to look at from all the perspectives, because to heal is to look at the full picture, isn't it? And so my program will of course walk them through that. But the divorce group is Breakup to Breakthrough on Facebook. And so they can join. I do send tricks and tips. I do webinars. I do lives at times. There are resources there, so feel free definitely to look. I do send quizzes and stuff in there, and so I keep posting more and more depending on the week. Sometimes I'll post more, but certainly they're welcome to join that group as well.
Excellent. I absolutely want to thank you, Lana. So healmybreakup.com is where you can get a free copy of Lana's book. Her book is From Breakup to Breakthrough, 10 Steps to a Spiritually Enlightened Life After Divorce. I want to thank you, Lana, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for the work that you do, for shining your light, for doing all the work. You are a hard worker. You are a powerhouse at what you can get accomplished. I have been amazed to meet my twin in that regard. I'm like, I always think, where does my energy come from? And then I look at what you've got done. I'm like, well, yeah, let's go. So it's really fun. It's really fun. So I just want to thank you, and thank all of you for tuning in to Health Coach TV, and for recording of this and for other episodes. You can check us out at healthcoach-tv.com. So with that, I want to wish you all a fantastic week, and most of all, be good for you.